Hello, friends. Welcome back to Saturday Evenings Posted Mostly with me, your host, Trevor Stewart 1308, and we are here with the ASOC Prod Cat and the Peanut Gallery. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Greetings.
Wow, that was a very Sam the Eagle hello there from you there, Peanut Gallery. Well, we have a few things going on today. We have a special breakfast with the Kush Gang because they had a special product for sale yesterday. We are also going to be playing a 6 Degrees game where we try to get from us to Kevin Bacon within 6 degrees. But first, let me start with the ad read. Today's pre-rolls brought to you by The Hidden Leaf, downtown Charlottesville, 105 West Main Street, above the bricks, Suite 200. On the downtown mall above the bricks, Suite 200. A great place to go with some great buds to get some great buds. A bud, and the only thing better than their bud is their customer service. Also, they have the lowest prices in town, according to my own personally highly biased research, by which I mean I was incredibly high when I did my biased research. Don't forget to check the website for times and events, such as Frosty Fridays, where you can find our other sponsors, Kush Gang and Firehouse. Kush Gang, purveyor of fine edibles and drinkables, which we will be testing later, and Firehouse, where there's smoke, there's Firehouse. Normally, we would put out a note of disclaimer here saying that all opinions you hear expressed herein, da-da-da-da-da, but this should be a relatively social and politically opinion-free episode. However, if we do sneak one in, they belong to us, not our advertisers. Before we get into everything, let us start with... Oh, I forgot to give you the website. That's thehiddenleafcville.com, thehiddenleafcville.com. We should start with some mentions of remembrance before we get into our regularly scheduled programming. Kush Gang in the audience. Hey, what's up, Kingsways? Kush Gang. Great to see you. Thank you for being here. Oh, you guys got to it before me. They got to the shout out before me. So, I'm going to dig into the first waffle, and we're going to take a moment to say goodbye to 3 people who passed this last week who we think were very important people. These are apple cinnamon stuffed. Oh, cool. Thank you. These are apple cinnamon stuffed waffles. Yes, is that correct? They are amazing is what they are. So, by contrast of amazing food, first let's say goodbye to one of, I think, the most influential, I would say, biologist, natural biologist, and behavioral studies pioneer, Jane Goodall, who passed this last week. How old was she?
Hang on, let me look that up.
The new lady at the table made them.
91.
91.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, Chris in the 386. Thank you for the lurk. Much love. Yeah, Jane Goodall passed at 91. Um, she had, by all accounts, an amazing sense of humor. Uh, and she really, I don't know that she revolutionized, but she did the necessary work to study primates. And to really, she made some of the biggest discoveries in primatology. Um, and she did this very much out of a passion for science. Her sense of humor, it was all for the good all. Yeah, exactly.
No, you said it wrong.
All for the good all.
There's no for in there. It's all good for good all.
It was all good for good all. Dyslexia, adding extra words, man. Can't help it. But yeah, she was primatologist, ethologist, and conservationist. And she was a leading expert in her fields. And what she did will be remembered, I think, for the extent of human history. She will be one of those people who stays in the history books forever.
One of the big things for her that they made a big deal out of every now and then is that when she started doing this, as you know, she became the person in her field.
Mm-hmm.
She never had any training in it.
No. And she started not just with no training in it, but like no background whatsoever.
No education, no degree. She was
Right.
a secretary.
Right. And she was asked if she wanted to go and observe and take notes.
Yep. She started taking notes.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the lessons in there is not bringing personal bias, not bringing preconceived educational notions into scientific observation.
Mm-hmm.
These waffles are buttery as well. Something buttery about them that is very good. Mm. And because the calories don't count. Hey, Dassin! Much love. Yeah. Because they are infused, 100 milligrams each, calories don't count. So the more of these I eat, the less calories count throughout the day.
Okay.
And your reasoning?
Because they give me the munchies. Wasabi, you're here as well. Great to see you. Thank you. So, I might have been running late because I was chilling out in Wasabi's stream talking to them. It was yeah.
That's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. So, we were we were about to move on to the next
Yes.
remembrance. If Maddie Holmes were here, she would disagree with me 100% on this. Yes, these are the edibles made by the new person at the Kush Gang table. These are from Kush Gang, and they are amazing. Apple cinnamon loaded infused waffles.
Wouldn't that be an entertaining thing to sell up at the Maple Festival?
Oh man. Yeah, I wonder what the loopholes to get away with it would be.
Can't be too big because we found those brownies.
You know.
I think you just need to, or the gang needs to send someone up there to go make waffles and sell them.
Well, maybe. I think we need to look into what the laws around that are before we make that. I don't want to get too deep into discussing the legalities here because I'm not sure what they are. And B, I don't want to misrepresent anyone and get them in
Fair
trouble.
enough.
Yeah. But yeah, these would be great at the Maple Festival. So we were about to do our second in memoriam. And if Maddie Holmes were here, she would disagree with me about this, but I think that this is okay, that is Highland County Maple Festival. That is the event. In Highland County, Virginia. British national treasure Patricia Rutledge passed at 96 this last week. Most people would remember her as Hyacinth Bouquet. And that is definitely her most well-known role. But one of my favorite roles that she did was as Hetty Wainthropp in the Wainthropp Mysteries, co-starring Dom Moynihan, who we know as, oh, dang it, Merry or Pippin. I always get them confused.
One of them hobbits.
Mm-hmm. One of them hobbits. The blonde one. Her portrayal of of entitled middle class behavior was, it was in its own way a very biting commentary about the class system in UK in the 80s. And when I realized that, I started to really like the show a lot more. When it occurred to me that you were really not supposed to like Hyacinth. Now, you know, this show is a product of its time. There's a lot of language and ideas that are questionable, problematic, but I also felt like it was working really hard to punch up, to not punch down. It was, I don't know that it always managed to be, but it tried really hard to, which really gained a lot of points in my book, I think. Now, you know, also, oh, now I can't remember his name, but Richard Bucket was such an, I could identify with him. He was such a just lovable character and played such great counterpoint to Hyacinth that I felt like it really made the show work. Do either of you have any connection to any of her work? Were either of you into her stuff?
I am familiar with Hyacinth's Bouquet, or Bucket. And I did watch the show, so at the moment I can't remember the name of it.
Keeping Up Appearances.
Okay, I thought that might be the case, but I could not verify that in my mind. So yeah, that's about all I'm familiar with. I enjoyed it.
Honestly, I probably saw some of it at one point or another, but it's not ringing a bell for me at the moment.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I could see how it wouldn't have stuck with you. What about you, Wasabi? What are your feelings there? How did you feel about her on the show? Being that you're our only UK representative at the moment. I do have to imagine it is bizarre hearing us talk about the show. You know, we although I mean, yeah, it would be bizarre to hear us talk about the show, but also I would think that I think it's more bizarre to hear an American talking about a British show. I was quite young when it was on TV. At times I didn't get the comedy. However, she portrayed a stuck-up middle-class woman. Yeah. Yeah. She really did. And I mean, to the point where she's questioning the guy who comes in to read her electric meter if if she's getting her electricity first before anybody else, because it could be going to some really odd families. And that was coded language for poor. It could be going to poor people. And implied in that was immigrants. And then the stuff about how the Chinese food, people were always calling her, instead of the Chinese food takeaway place. And she just, her reaction to the idea of immigrants calling her slimline white telephone, like, and they really play it off like, they play it off as microaggressions that aren't exactly harmless. Like, you really do sort of go, wow, that's messed up. And the people around her are affected by her behavior. You see, as their relationship with her progresses, they get more and more skittish. That's the UK. You have to read into things. Yes, exactly. I mean, it's in America too. Let's not be coy here. But in America, racism is a lot louder too. It's very quiet and very loud. Whereas in UK, I don't know if it's as loud, or if it's only as loud in certain places. In the US, it's always both, sort of. So, but yeah, I can't imagine there are as many Americans who dig into British shows, for example, as there are British people who dig into American shows. I don't think Americans do as good a job of getting a global education in media and entertainment.
In there, the sheer number of runaway hits in modern pop culture that are straight rip-offs of British television.
Oh my god. Oh, definitely. Hi, buddy. Yeah. I know Ghosts, the American version of Ghosts, is supposed to be good, or at least passable. I have not watched it. I have not brought myself to watch it. I really enjoyed the British Ghosts. And not just The Office. Although, turns out I don't like either. I really dislike Ricky Gervais. And the bits of Ricky Gervais that got left in the American version of The Office really ruined it for me. All right, we should probably move on to our third goodbye this week. And this person, it's a bit more personal. Quite a bit more personal. And for those of you who remember the early days of the weekly Broken News, actually remember Weekly Broken News and our Why Florida Why segment, Uncle Randy passed this last week, and it's sad, for his wife, for his kids, for his family, for my family. It is also, you know, it's a marker of time. We are getting older. I am getting older. And more people in my life are going to be passing away. The longer I live, the more people I know and care about will pass away. And that is a sad thought, but it's also how life works. And I don't want to look at death as loss. Uncle Randy will no longer be around to sneak up behind you in the swimming pool, grab your ankle and pull you underwater real quick. But he left a legacy of joy and love. He always tried to bring levity into a situation. Which is why I chose him to be the representative for Florida in Why Florida Why. Because he had such a great sense of humor. We once agreed that he'd build a potato gun, and next time I'd get arrested was for shooting off the potato gun next time I came around.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the family members who took in stride my criminal history and could find humor in it. And that helped me be able to find humor in it and be able to make it through difficult times. At my wedding, after my wedding, it was the after party for the wedding. At the wedding after party, it was a block party too. I think our neighbor was angry because he wasn't invited or hadn't thought to just show up. Brock could probably tell this story better than I can. And he may do so on a later stream at some point. our neighbor, a guy we nicknamed Thunderdome, or Slow Popcorn, depending on how generous we were feeling. Drove his truck at my cousin Crystal, Uncle Randy's daughter. Was it Crystal or was it Ginny? It was one of Uncle Randy's daughters. He was trying to get into his parking spot, but he then, like, pulled past his parking spot at one of the girls. And so a bit of a row ensued. And Uncle Randy got his golf club from his truck and started wailing on Thunderdome's truck. Just started beating the heck out of Thunderdome's truck. Not breaking any windows, but boy did he dent that thing. Y'all's wedding might be in the South. If everybody drove a truck. You know, as soon as Randy stopped beating the crap out of Thunderdome's truck, everybody got together. That whole section of the family got together, bounced out. Cops came to talk. I ended up talking to my dad about it. And my dad's like, yeah, no, they just gave me a call from the South Carolina border. They're on their way home. You know, you can try and catch up with them there, but I don't know. Da, 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 da. And the cops basically were like, yeah, we're not messing with this. So, it ain't a wedding party till somebody's truck gets dented by somebody else's golf clubs. I come from some country people, y'all. You know, the funny thing is, that whole time, I don't think Uncle Randy actually lost his temper. I've seen him angry. That wasn't angry. That was just automatic defense mode. F golf. I don't know, man. I think golf clubs are a great way to ruin someone's day.
Are you talking about having someone pay for them, or are you talking about hitting someone with them, or
Hitting
watching
someone with them.
idiots use them?
Hitting someone with them. I might have you beat. We had to hire security for my wife's grandmother's family night when she passed away. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Oh.
That's a story.
Oh, now I'm curious. When her grandfather passed, there was a fight at family night. Oh, man. See, what I will say is at least this wasn't family fighting family. This was family fighting outsiders. Sister's husband got his jaw broke. Oh, what did he say? What did he do to get his jaw broke? I mean, usually for my family gatherings, everything is really chill because most of them are a lot of stoners. It's, you know, hard to get them to actually get into a fight because they're all like, "Nah, man, stop harshing the buzz."
Ooh.
Sister lied on him, said he wouldn't bring her to the. Oh! All the males jumped him when he pulled up. Oh! Oh, so
That's
this wasn't even
dirty.
his fault. Oh! Mmm. Oh, that's that. Mmm. He was innocent. That is. Oh man. Oh man, that's rough.
Yeah.
Mmm. Yeah. Yep.
Me?
Yep. You got a country wedding story? Or a funeral story? Country funeral story?
No. No, I've helped people find lost grave sites a couple times.
All right. So that's very specifically Appalachian creepy. And Appalachia is creepy. That's different. That's different than country.
Oh.
Them mountain people, they got some stories. Um,
Otherwise, most of the funerals I've been to have been pretty tame. I think that the best one I've ever been to was the one for my dad,
mm,
who absolutely demanded there be no funeral. So, we had like 2 minutes of silence in church and went on with our business. He
I
was
gotta
happy.
respect that,
We,
right? We also dig a grave for any family member that passes away. Yep, yep,
Mhm.
that's country. Um, I know. I'm pretty sure I know where my grave plot is because I was born on the farm. I'm pretty sure that like all the farm kids, I have a grave plot still on the farm. So I will be buried back on the commune where I was born. Or
And now I
could
have
be.
got the zombie version of Old MacDonald's farm running in my head. Thank you, Trevor.
This would be more like the hippie zombie version of Old MacDonald's farm. Um,
It's still zombies on Old MacDonald's farm, and it's
yep,
still your fault.
yep. Uh, yeah, I think the best funeral I've ever been to was for Squirrel Master.
Mm.
This is his nickname. Um, of course, his parents did not name him Squirrel Master. Uh, he had a green funeral. Um, and we dug his grave. We dug the we dug the pit. Uh, it was country crazy stories. I bet. Um, it was in this wildflower field up in upstate New York, um, near Elmira, and
Mm.
you go to the memorial area, the burial area, and they hand out shovels and tools that you know the mourners carry to the plot. And you carry the body in a cloth bag, basically, and you dig a hole and bury your friend in the middle of a field of wildflowers. And it was amazingly disorganized and beautiful. Very, I mean, he was a very dear friend, so I was very, emotional anyway. But it was a fitting tribute to someone who had touched their friends' lives so completely, and someone who had dedicated their life to being in nature so much and trying to be in balance with the world. And I would, if I can, I would like that for me, but that's only if I can. And that's only something to worry about in the far, far-flung future. If at all. So, now that we've gotten through the sad stuff, and I'm sorry to have started us off on such a downer note, but it has been that kind of a week. We are gonna be playing 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those of you who do not know what 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon is, I'm gonna wait for us to come back from an ad break just in case anybody is on ad break. Seven degrees? I always knew it as 6 degrees. I'd learned the game as 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. You get from one actor... okay. Yeah, it is 6 degrees. Get from an actor to Kevin Bacon in 6 degrees. Classic rules state that it has to be movies, and it's preferable that they were in scenes together.
Mm-hmm.
But we are not playing by classical rules. Good to see you, Maddie. Thank you for being here. We are playing by slightly expanded rules. We are going to use the broad category of show business and show business related jobs. And the homework for you guys, that is for you guys. Can you get from either of you or both of you to Kevin Bacon in 6 degrees? Kush Gang, aka Kingsways, I didn't require him to do it through necessarily show business, but there is a way to get it through show business. You know a lot of movies? All right. So, did you guys, I remember you had one yesterday, or 2 days ago, Kat.
Yeah.
Peanut Gallery, did you ever come up with one?
Mm, nope.
All right, Maddie, can you get from you to Kevin Bacon in 6 degrees? Now, the first video we're going to watch today is going to tell us what the mechanism of that is. Why we can get from anybody to anybody else in 6 degrees. The second video, if we get to it, speaks to sort of what that means. It's a follow-up sort of on what that means. So, Kat, you want to start us off with getting from you to Kevin Bacon in 6 degrees?
Yeah, mine's kind of short though.
That's okay. In less than 6 degrees. Although, if you can lengthen it to 6 degrees, you get extra points for landing it on the nose.
I am too tired for that today.
Fair enough.
So John Grisham made a baseball movie. Filmed
Yes.
part of it locally that I got to be an extra in. So I was an extra in the movie, and the star of the movie was Harry Connick Jr.
Yes.
So Harry Connick Jr. was in My Dog Skip with Kevin Bacon.
2 steps.
One was the star, and the other was the main narrator.
2 steps. You got from you to Kevin Bacon in 2 steps.
Like I said, I'm tired.
Right? So that means, Peanut Gallery, that you can get there in 3 steps. Because you are on this show with Kat, who was an extra in that movie with Harry Connick Jr., which means that everybody in chat can do it in 3 steps as well, because you guys are technically on this show with us.
That's a very interesting use of technicalities. I can appreciate that.
That's okay. Mine leans heavily on a technicality as well. When I was 1 year old, when I was around 1 to 2 years old, somewhere in that range, we were invited, my bio family was invited to be the nighttime security people okay. I'm friends with the iBots, and their dad is the absolute spitting image of Stanley. It's uncanny, no pun intended. And Stanley to Kevin Bacon, X-Men First Class. There you go. So, my family was invited to be the nighttime security people on the set of Another Kind of Slapstick, starring Jerry Lewis and Madeline Kahn, Aunt Maddie. And Madeline Kahn was in History of the World Part 1 with Mel Brooks, who was in Spaceballs with John Candy, who was in JFK with Kevin Bacon. And that should be 5 steps, putting all of you at the 6th step. Let's see what... Oh my god. Wait, which one's Stan Lee? Which one's their dad? Because of this picture, it counts. We're going with it counts. That's their mom in the back. Nice. Okay, this one must be Stan Lee.
One in the jacket?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have, I mean, you've got a technical show business meeting caught on camera.
Yeah.
It counts.
It counts.
It counts. That's a lot of Iron Men.
I mean, during the movies, Tony's just calling all sorts of robots out of thin air, so I'm not concerned with the number at the show.
True. Yes, they are insane. They were insanely good. So yeah, that's the that is the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. So that's, you know, that shows us how small our world actually is. And there is a valid reason for this. There's a valid mechanism. And what it says about humans ultimately, I think, is a very positive message. So, let's watch something.
Okay.
Guys clicked on the link. Everybody
In
good to hear?
1999, the German newspaper Die Zeit ran an experiment. They asked a falafel salesman and former theater director, Salah Bengali, who in the world he would most like to be connected to. He chose his favorite actor, Marlon Brando. So the reporters then searched for a chain of friends, family, or acquaintances, people who knew each other on a first-name basis, who could connect Bengali to Brando. As it happens, Bengali had a friend in California. This friend worked alongside the boyfriend of a woman who was the sorority sister of the daughter of the producer of the film Don Juan DeMarco, starring Marlon Brando. So in total, it took just 6 steps, 6 degrees of separation. And the idea is that this is not a unique example, that you could connect any 2 people on the planet in 6 steps or less. But is it really true? And if it is, how does it affect our lives?
How is this possible in a world of now 8 billion people, that we could be that close, just 6 hops or less? Does that affect how diseases spread, how information travels? Our math showed the question is not why is the world small, it's really how could it be otherwise? But then I got a call from the FBI. We are making the world smaller all the time. Like it's supposed to be good, and yet it does expose you to toxicity and malevolence that you might have been shielded from.
You look at the net effect of it, and it's actually been pretty negative by a lot of measures. People have suffered.
It's not only dangerous in terms of disease propagation, but anything malevolent now has conduits that it didn't used to have.
Transform trillions of signals into relevant reach.
Tired of investing in tangible assets? Nothing says you've made it like a one-of-a-kind image of a banana.
If we were all connected to everyone else on the planet completely at random, then it would be almost a mathematical certainty that any 2 of us would be connected through fewer than 6 steps.
Let's suppose I have my 100 friends out of 8 billion people. Each of them knows 100 people. So 2 steps away from me is going to encompass 100 times 100 people. That's already 10 to the 4th people. And so if you do 100 to the 5th power, that's 10 to the 10th. And that's more people than there are on Earth. So notice that number is 5. I said to the 5th power. That's the ballpark reason why 6 degrees of separation is true.
But the shocking thing about this is the calculation you've just outlined is about having 100 friends at random out of 10 billion. and they're all over the world. But we know that in the real world, that's nowhere near what the distribution of friends are like.
Absolutely true. So this really crude calculation I did is absurd for the reason that you said. The world is very far from random.
The truth is, people naturally cluster geographically. Most of the people you know live close to you, and they also have a higher probability of knowing each other. If you calculate the fraction of people you know who also know each other, that is a measure of the clustering in the network. So
I think we also need to, guys, I think we also need to take into account that these aren't, close friendships. They're acquaintanceships. Closer, not quite as broad as friends on MySpace, but or Facebook, but closer
You're getting a little
to,
meta there.
huh?
I said you're getting a little meta there.
I caught that. He didn't say acquaintances, he did say friends. And they'll make that distinction later. I think right now they're just starting by sort of giving some general ideas. But also they quickly pointed out that that was a BS equation for many reasons. So
let's try a model with a high degree of clustering. Imagine all 8 billion people on Earth are arranged into a circle, and say each person knows the 100 people closest to them, so 50 to the left and 50 to the right. Well, in this case, the furthest person you can connect to is just 50 people away. So if you wanted to connect to someone on the other side of the planet through a chain of people who know each other, well, it would take 80 million steps. And to connect any two people would take, on average, 40 million steps. Even just getting 10% of the way there would take 8 million steps, and 6 steps would get you, well, here. This is the paradox of 6 degrees of separation. We know that we live in these local clusters of friends and acquaintances, but we also seem to be able to connect anyone anywhere in just 6 steps. 10 years ago, I did my own experiment on this, and I found that the average Veritasium viewer was only 2.7 degrees of separation from me. In social science, this is known as the small world problem, named after the phenomenon where you're, say, on holiday somewhere, and you bump into a stranger who somehow knows your best friend, and you say, wow, it's such a small world. In the mid-1990s, 2 mathematicians, Duncan Watts and Steve Strogatz, set out to solve this small world problem.
Duncan really sort of had very far-seeing imagination at that point.
We had computers that allowed us to simulate environments that were too complicated for math to work.
Up until then, physicists had studied networks that were ordered and regular, like crystal lattices. And mathematicians, like Paul Erdos, had done lots of work on totally random networks. But no one had studied what happens in between.
There must be some enormous middle ground, and that's what Duncan and I felt like we're starting to explore.
To study this middle ground, Watts and Strogatz imagined a simple regular network of people, or nodes, dotted around a circle, each connected to a few of their nearest neighbors.
And so we had this idea, we're going to start with the physicist end of regular. Now we're going to turn the randomness knob to make it more and more random through these random shortcuts.
We all have some experience with shortcuts.
I belong to this club called Internet Chess Club. I got to be very friendly with a guy in Holland. That connection makes the world small, because now, even though my friends don't realize it, they're only one step away from a guy in Holland. And so that kind of connection, where you sort of connect to someone outside your normal circle, is what we came to call a shortcut.
So they went round the circle, disconnecting some of the links and reconnecting them at random to a different node in the network. And as they did that, they watched what happened to the average number of steps it took to get from any one node in the network to another, hopping between connected nodes. In other words, the degree of separation.
This is now the moment for the big reveal. As Duncan turned the knob in his computer simulations, as soon as he introduced a few shortcuts, the world immediately gets as small as a random graph.
When they had rewired just 1% of the links to shortcuts, the average degree of separation dropped from 50 in the original fully ordered network to 10. But Watts and Strogatz also tracked how clustered the network was. That's the fraction of a node's connections that are also connected to each other. Or in other words, the fraction of my friends who are also friends with each other.
Exactly, Kush Gang. I have I'm similar, like, because I've traveled a lot. I've taken these disparate places and connected them. Much like a subspace corridor. You have a lot of people in Hampton that are military, so you have a lot of friends born on bases and in other countries as well. What you said before, that was, if you take a case like yours, you were born in Opelika, Alabama, grew up in Hampton, Virginia, lived in Seaville for 15 years, and now in Louisa. And so that drastically extends not only your connections, but all of ours by default, because we're connected to you, who's then connected to all those people. And it really is I think the nomadic nature of humans in general that causes this to happen. The fact that we travel and communicate across great distances.
They found is that clustering remained high for much longer.
The world immediately gets as small as a random graph, but it stays as clustered as if it were still regular. So you could simultaneously have the clustering that we know is real and the small world that we know is real.
Chevy makes America's most dependable trucks.
Now, in Watts and Strogatz's model, they looked at 1,000 nodes. But if you apply their model to the 8 billion people on Earth, well, then you would only need 3 out of every 10,000 friendships to be a shortcut, and the average degrees of separation drops to 6.
Our math showed, the question is not why is the world small, it's really how could it be otherwise? Duncan started saying to me, this is about discovering a whole new universe and its properties and laws. I recognized that he was right.
I just wanted to sort of reflect on what you said about these sort of shortcuts. I think I've had this phenomenon happen to me sometimes in my life where I'm sort of invited to an event and it seems like a very random event. Often I kind of feel like, oh, I don't really want to go, none of my friends are going. But then maybe at the last minute I just say like, well, let's just roll the dice. And I find that almost invariably those are productive meetings. I'm kind of wondering if there's a takeaway for people here, which is that they should put themselves in situations where the probability of forming these shortcut links, would it sort of increase the luck in your life?
You have just put your finger on a very famous phenomenon in sociology that is called the strength of weak ties. Because you ask people how they got their job, and people would say, oh yeah, I heard about it from, Randy. And then he'd say, oh, is Randy a friend of yours? And people invariably would say, no, he's an acquaintance. I wouldn't call him a friend, he's an acquaintance. That's a weak tie. The strong tie is your...
Now, I want to know, Randy, be able to get me any job? This Randy guy sounds like a miracle.
Best friend or your circle of friends.
Excited about their breakthrough, Watts and Strogatz wanted to test their small world model on some real world data. But this was 1996.
We had to think, well, where are we going to get data on big networks where we could test this? And it was not so easy. The internet was not mapped out. Google didn't exist.
So they turned to an unusual source.
There was only one nervous system that had been mapped at that time, which was the worm C. elegans. Tiny worm, like a millimeter, that you can find in the dirt, a favorite of neurobiologists. They knew every cell in the body of C. elegans from the time it's a single cell till it becomes a whole organism. So they had the total wiring diagram of that organism.
Watts and Strogatz tested their model on the worm's neural network. The worm has precisely 282 neurons, and on average, they're connected to 14 others. If you lay that all out in a line along the worm's body, the neurons at the ends would be separated by around 40 steps, and the average degree of separation would be around 14. But when Watts and Strogatz ran the calculations, they found the average degrees of separation between any two neurons was just 2.65. To put that in context, if they were connected totally at random, it would be 2.25.
And yes, okay, so bingo, that was a small world. Then we were popping the champagne. I mean, that was really exciting that nature had done that. So then we thought, well, okay, but this should be true of lots of networks because nature can't resist this mechanism.
So they looked at Hollywood actors and power grids across the US. Sure enough, they were both small world networks. For example, in the database of over 200,000 Hollywood actors, the average degree of separation was less than 4.
Dangerfield was in Caddyshack with Bill Murray, and Bill Murray was in She's Having a Baby with Kevin Bacon.
Then the real payoff for us as people interested in dynamical systems, more than graph theory, was, okay, so what? So what if the world is small? Does that affect how things get in sync? Does it affect how diseases spread? Does it affect how information travels, whatever? And so we did a number of experiments, again, in the computer like that.
Take disease. I wanted to know how a few shortcuts would affect how disease spreads through a network. So I asked Casper and the team to make a simulation.
And then the question to you is, do you want to start with a completely regular world where it's completely clustered, or do you want to start with completely random?
I would start with the regular world.
Okay. There it goes.
This is the spread of infections.
Yeah. So it takes over the world completely. Well, if every step was a day, it would take 73 days for the infection to take over this entire world.
Well, let's introduce a few shortcuts and see.
Okay. Let's make it small world, like 10%. Let's go.
Boom. Wow, that's really dramatic.
Right?
That's really dramatic and very fast.
Yeah, so fast. Yeah, after 26 days, the whole world.
And that ramp up does look exponential at the beginning, and then it kind of looks linear there as well, but it's almost like you can't go any faster.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's make it a completely random network.
Boom.
Boom.
Crazy. How many days now for a fully random network?
25.
My eyes don't get as bloodshot as that, do they? Like, you guys can't tell. Like, our cameras aren't good enough to tell that. Right?
We don't need them good enough to tell.
Okay. Because I don't think my eyes get that bloodshot. 720p right now. I know I'm recording in 1080. But I don't know if I'm transmitting in 1080. But his eyes are really bloodshot. Not saying dude's a stoner. I'm just saying his eyes are really bloodshot.
Basically identical.
Which is crazy because in the random case, all your links are random. In the small world case, it's just 10%. It's like if 1 out of your 10 friends are a shortcut, which, for some people might be a bit much, but I reckon for you, it's probably about right.
Yeah, I got lots of shortcuts.
But the crazy thing is that in this simulation, we only used 100 nodes. And if you use the same model to the 8 billion people on Earth, then you would actually need less than 1% of all your links to be shortcuts.
In 1998, Watson Strogatz published their findings in a 3-page article in Nature, and the paper took off. Within a few years, the paper already had hundreds of citations. By 2014, it was ranked the 63rd most cited paper of all time. And today, it's got around 58,000 citations. That's higher than Peter Higgs' paper on the Higgs boson, and almost 3 times as many as Watson and Crick's Nobel Prize-winning paper on DNA.
So it's probably worth making that distinction, that citations are one measure of impact. We're cited a lot more than Einstein, and I think you know.
Got the new iPhone 17 Pro, and Verizon picked up the tab.
No way.
Yeah, it's me. Handsome and hilarious.
Who's more important? It's not us, but it does mean people thought it was worth citing. We had many tens of thousands of citations from people in far-flung fields, from neuroscience to sociology to graph theory to computer science. Even, English literature, people would do things like draw networks between words.
Is there any irony in the fact that this paper on small word networks goes viral itself?
Yes, I think so, maybe so.
But then things got a little weird.
That's when I started getting some strange phone calls. I got a call from somebody at the FBI. I was a little scared, what's the FBI calling me about? And so I called back, and the person who picks up says, hair and fiber. I was calling the hair and fiber network at the FBI, the people who do, criminology based on what telltale hairs or fibers are left on the victim's clothes after they've been murdered. There was a guy who said, what happens when the police have a suspect and they say you have fibers on your sweater that match the hair of the victim? And then the defense lawyer says, well, maybe the victim was on a bus and left her fibers on the bus, and then my client sat on a secondary transfer, they would call it, of these fibers. That doesn't prove anything. So the FBI wanted to know what's the probability of secondary transfers compared to primary transfers for actually killing the person. And I thought, what do I know?
Now, that's a Steve Strogatz problem. For most of us, a random caller telling you they're an FBI agent is probably a scam. Chances are they got your number from a data leak or a data broker. Anytime you provide your name, phone number, even your social security number, that sure to use the code Veritasium for 60% off your annual subscription. So I want to thank Incogni for sponsoring this video, and now back to networks. In 1998, Albert Laszlo Barabashi was studying the internet. At that time, there were around 800 million web pages. But despite the web's enormous size, Barabashi found that on average, you could connect any 2 sites with just 19 clicks. Apparently, the web was a small world too. But the strange thing was, it didn't look anything like the small world network in Watts and Strogatz's model.
We ended up mapping out a region of the World Wide Web, and we had a very clear expectation of how that network should look like.
Barabashi thought the distribution of pages and links would resemble a bell curve, similar to what you'd get for people's height across a population. Most sites would have some average number of links, and there would be very few outliers either side. But that is not what he saw.
And so we measured the distribution, and it didn't look anything like what we expected.
The curve started out steep. Loads of websites had not many links. Then there was this really long tail.
And here we saw web pages that had not only a little more, but sometimes 100 times more links than the average degree or the average node on the website.
These were websites like Yahoo, super connectors that linked to thousands of other sites. Barabashi called them hubs because when he mapped out the network, they resembled the hub of a wheel with spokes going out to hundreds of other pages. And it was these hubs that made the web a small world, not shortcuts. So Barabashi wondered, how could this apply to other networks too?
Most real networks, or virtually all large networks, follow two very fundamental principles. First, any large network out there never pops out as a large network, but it grows, right? You have a tiny World Wide Web in 1991, and now we have trillions of nodes on the World Wide Web. How did we get to 1 to a trillion? One node at a time, one website at a time. All the networks out there, no matter how old, how fast they emerged, they always emerged to some kind of growth process. So if you think about networks, you must build in that growth process. Number two, when a new node comes in, you join Facebook, who you're going to connect to, right? And it is somewhat unpredictable, but it's biased. Your connections are always biased towards the more connected nodes, simply because you are more likely to know a more connected node than a less connected node. We named this process preferential attachment.
Barabashi reasoned that these two principles could explain how hubs naturally emerge when a network grows. So together with his colleague, Reike Albert, he ran a simulation.
We've also got a simulation for this. They started with a simple network of just a few connected nodes. Then they began adding new nodes to the network one at a time, with just one condition. They'd be more likely to connect to nodes that already had more links.
That's so cool. Looks very biological, very organic. Also, I like how the nodes come out and they don't just sort of stop in one spot. They kind of like wiggle around and like find their location. I really enjoy this. Like a space station.
That's what I was thinking.
Or like a space colony, right? Like
yeah, right? Like each little center one could be a planet, then you've got all the sort of stations going around it.
Yes.
So when Barabashi and Albert let these networks evolve, hubs emerged.
And we showed that growth and preferential attachment together naturally lead to the emergence of the hubs.
With this simulation, Barabashi and Albert showed how hubs could emerge in virtually any complex network. Take airports, for example. In 1955, Chicago O'Hare opened to commercial flights. Unlike neighboring airport Midway, it had long runways and plenty of space for new jet aircraft. Airlines began shifting service there. As more airlines connected flights to O'Hare, passengers had more options to connect, making it increasingly attractive. After deregulation in the 1970s, more airlines were free to add routes, and the feedback loop accelerated. Each new route made the airport more useful to passengers and more appealing to other airlines. Today, O'Hare is the most connected airport in the United States, with direct flights to well over 200 destinations.
But we don't just see hubs in man-made networks. In food webs, you have a few keystone species like Atlantic cod that connect hundreds of predators and prey. And in the metabolic networks in our cells, you have a few molecules like ATP that govern hundreds of chemical reactions. In the neural networks in our brain, you have a few regions like the prefrontal cortex that link hundreds of different functions. Now, as each of these networks evolved and grew over time, you had new species, new reactions, and new circuits that latched on to what was already well connected. And so you get this sort of natural growth. Now, preferential attachment isn't the only mechanism that can create hubs. There are plenty of other factors at play, particularly in these more complex biological systems. But what Barabashi's and Albert's simulation showed is that all it takes is a tiny bias when growing a network, and hubs end up being inevitable.
Once hubs are there, they fundamentally change the way the system behaves and the way we understand that system.
Hubs like O'Hare mean you can get pretty much anywhere in the world in just a few flights. But that connectivity also has consequences.
At San Pellegrino, we look on the juicy side of life. So, how would you...
I think what that would be saying is that, you know, people like Kush Gang and myself and Kat, who have these, you know, and Maddie, who have these, you know, links to larger groups through these few through these things. We're like the hubs of this version of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. And in the original, in classic rules, Kevin Bacon is like the prime hub. He's the O'Hare. And then you've got people like Tom Cruise who are, a major hub because of their connection to so many other people in so many other movies. And you've got, Tom Cruise. Who are the other big ones? Kiefer Sutherland would be a big, one of the big hub people there. Donald Sutherland would be one of the big hub people there. Well, I'm trying to remember the Donald Sutherland Kevin Bacon movie. Because I don't think Kevin Bacon was in All the President's Men. Anyway, that's sort of the hub, I think the hub idea at play here, put in terms of our original analogy.
In August 2025, thunderstorms shut down Chicago O'Hare, and 280 flights were canceled and 80 were diverted. Overflow hit at least 6 other U.S. airports, while some planes stuck in Chicago never left for Europe or Asia.
Bad weather in Chicago totally changes not only the travel pattern in Chicago, but within 24 hours, the whole country is being affected by that.
And we see the same phenomenon in natural networks. Knocking out one keystone species, like Atlantic cod, can destabilize an entire ecosystem.
So this is what we call the Achilles heel of networks. And this could be good news or it could be bad news, right? Good news if you want to create drugs to kill bacteria, then you're going to go for the hub.
This idea has created a whole new field of network medicine, where researchers develop drugs to target crucial parts of a disease's metabolic network. But understanding the role of hubs doesn't just help develop cures for a disease, it can help us control its spread. In 1990, Thailand was facing one of the fastest growing HIV epidemics in the world. The government tried broad campaigns like posters, TV ads, and school talks telling everyone to use condoms. But the infection kept spreading. So in 1991, the government tried something different. They started targeting hubs. They told brothels around the country that every client must use a condom or else they'd be shut down. And the impact was huge. For example, HIV infections among young men joining the military dropped by more than 50%. And by 2013, Thailand's Ministry of Public Health estimated the policy had prevented over 5 million infections, all because they realized the importance of hubs.
Hubs and shortcuts make any complex network more connected than it seems. That means things spread quickly, whether that's airport delays, information, or disease. But could that impact run even deeper? I mean, could the structure of our social network influence our very behavior and beliefs without us even being aware of it?
Back in 1997, Watson Strogatz investigated just that, using a game called The Prisoner's Dilemma. Probably the most famous problem in game theory, and it's used to represent a ton of different conflicts we see in the real world. We've actually done a full video on it before, but here's a quick recap. The premise is simple. A banker with a chest full of gold invites you and another player to play. You each get 2 choices. You can cooperate or defect. If you both cooperate, you each get 3 coins. But if you defect while your opponent cooperates, you get 5 coins and they get nothing. And if you both defect, then you each get 1 coin. So what would you do? Suppose your opponent...
I feel the need to, at this point out why it's called Prisoner's Dilemma. Is that the original version of this game isn't played with coins. It's played with jail time. And instead of and the reason it's cooperate and defect, well, it was originally snitch and don't snitch. And the idea is that you and a friend, an acquaintance, got caught committing a crime and are in jail, in interrogation, not jail. And you're, if you both say nothing, you both get off and don't get any prison time.
Mm-hmm.
If one of you, that's if you both cooperate. If one of you cooperates and the other one doesn't, the one who cooperates gets no time in jail, and the one who didn't gets all the time in jail. And then if you both snitch, you know, then you both get a reduced sentence. So that's the way the game is that's why it's called the Prisoner's Dilemma. Now, I think part of why this is a better representation, why you know, treasure money is a better representation than the original Prisoner's Dilemma, is because for people like me, the possible outcome in the original Prisoner's Dilemma, the jail time that I might have gotten doesn't affect my behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I will not snitch, not in the hopes of getting a reduced sentence, but because to me that's the ethical behavior in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, whether I get all the jail time or none of the jail time, I'm not snitching. And so it all depends on if the other person, you know, knows that about me. Feels like they can trust that about me. However, my feelings about the other person don't really come into play. Whereas this version, someone like myself would be way more likely to play for the stakes stated. You know, without that construct making us, you know, causing a certain behavior in us.
I could see that.
Even though I'm, you know, I would rather both of us cooperate and both of us get 3 coins than, you know, ever be, you know, try to get all 5 by defecting and hoping the other person doesn't defect, you know? So.
The first time I was ever really introduced to this particular thing was actually through Piers Anthony, Land of Xanth Stories.
Okay.
I forget which book it is. It was one of the earlier ones.
Okay.
But problem is to describe basically like they described it here. And the person's telling you, how do you solve this? And after watching you know, the little golem go through the explanation a couple of times, the person that's doing it says, well, I would do this. And they called it the tough but fair strategy.
I think, well, tough but fair. When we get there, tell me if that fits with their tit for tat model.
If their tit for tat model is effectively, we start off with, you know, willing to cooperate so everybody gets 3, but then doing back to them whatever they've been doing, yes.
Yes. It's a little, there are a couple of extra things involved, but yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, tough but fair sounds like it would be their tip.
Opponent cooperates, then you could.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hit play yet. So shall we continue and see what they found?
Yep.
Also cooperate and get 3 coins, or you could defect and get 5 coins instead. So you're better off defecting. But what if your opponent defects? Well, you could cooperate and get no coins, or you could defect and at least get 1. So no matter what your opponent does, your best option is always to defect. Now, if your opponent is also rational, they'll reach the same conclusion, and therefore they'll also defect. And as a result, when you both act rationally, you both end up in the suboptimal situation of getting 1 coin each, when you could have gotten 3. But in 1980, Professor Robert Axelrod found that if you play your opponent hundreds of times, well then, cooperation wins out. He ran a tournament among the world's leading game theorists, and all the most successful strategies were nice. The winning strategy was called tit for tat, because its default position was to cooperate, and it would only defect in retaliation. He also showed that a small cluster of cooperators can work together to overcome a world of defectors.
So that's kind of the scene we're set in, right? You get to this realistic place where you get tit-for-tat-like strategies to sort of dominate the world. Because in Axelrod's tournament, every strategy played against every other strategy, or they only interacted sort of with their near neighborhood, which is, the small cluster. And now you could wonder, well, what if we start changing the way this works? What if we put them on a network?
Well, Watts and Strogatz simulated their own version of the prisoner's dilemma that did just that. They set up a regular network where each player was connected to a few players on either side. Then they would simultaneously play against all of their connections. The rules were simple. If most of a player's connections cooperated, then that player would also cooperate. But if most of their connections defected, then they would defect in retaliation. They started with a small cluster of cooperators surrounded by defectors, and they watched the network evolve. Over time, what they saw was cooperation spread, just like what Axelrod had found. But then they reran the simulation, this time with a few links rewired to shortcuts, and all of a sudden, the cooperators were crushed, and they ended up with a world of defectors. And when they started from a totally regular network and gradually increased the fraction of shortcuts, they found there was this critical fraction beyond which the percentage of cooperators at the end of the game drops to 0.
I think the thing that's really crazy is that you've taken the exact same strategies with all the same properties, same character traits and personalities, if you will. And you're not changing any of that. All you're changing is the way they're connected. And you go from a world where everyone's completely nice and working together to one where it's filled with nastiness and people betraying each other. Only by changing how they're connected.
It's like if the bulk of your interactions are sort of negative, then you start being negative too, and you just contribute to the overall negativity. Whereas if like a few people are nice, then you can imagine, oh, that makes me feel good, and so I'm going to be nicer to that person.
The intuition for that is that cooperation is fostered by having little clumps. If I have a little clump of people that are kind of my buds, we get to have a lot of encounters, and cooperation tends to emerge from familiarity, the same way that iteration helps. That if I know that I'm going to see you again, I'm going to encounter you again, it ends up being to my advantage to cooperate. Whereas like the world of the internet, where anyone can get on Twitter and badmouth anyone else, that tends to discourage. We don't have pockets.
Man, he just went right
you don't have
for
communities.
it, didn't he?
It kind of explains this keyboard warrior phenomenon, and that, yeah.
They just went straight to it, didn't they?
I mean,
There was a little bit of, hey, don't you recognize this, to internet, keyboard troll, keyboard warrior troll.
Well, I mean, as you said, if I have a chance of seeing you in person again,
right?
It behooves me to cooperate.
Right. So your tough but fair was very much like their tit for tat model.
Very much so. You cooperate up until the point where someone stops cooperating, and then you do back to them. When they start cooperating again, you cooperate again.
Right. What is it? Nice, retaliatory, forgiving, and then there's a fourth thing. So the nice means that you're gonna start by cooperating. Retaliatory means you do back to them what they do to you. Forgiving means you only do it for one time. And then I can't remember what the fourth thing is. And they'll say it in a minute. But yeah, they really did kind of just went straight to the internet.
Yeah.
Which
People say things on the internet they would.
Do they mention the learning model with the monkeys and the banana?
I don't believe so. Although they might. What learning model?
I forget what the study was, but the outcome of it is the visual they gave is that if you start off with like 10 monkeys in a cage and you put a ladder and hang something above it for them to go to, but you've got a ladder rigged up so that every time they go step on it, it shocks them. They all learn not to go after the banana. And then once they've got that down and you start adding new monkeys to the cage, the ones that have learned you don't touch that will start beating on the new one and preventing them from going up after it.
I'm doing this for your own good. Well,
no. For your own good, for our own good, depending on which
Yeah, no, they don't mention
example they're using. Touching the ladder means that everybody gets jolted.
Oh, well, yeah, if everybody got jolted, of course the other monkeys are gonna... It's like, no, don't touch that. Mm-mm.
Even long after the electricity's been turned off and nothing's actually being done, and you've got, old monkeys are taken out and new monkeys are introduced, all of them are getting the same lesson.
Right. It's still don't touch the... Yeah, don't touch the ladder, don't touch the banana.
Which is, it's a whole thing about learned behavior.
Yeah,
which
I'd
this
say.
can kind of tie into. If you're doing the cooperative, forgiving, retaliatory in a cycle to try to teach someone to do better, that can work, but you also have the chance of it teaching them that it's not going to work.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, of course,
when you're dealing
with psychology of a consciousness, when you're dealing with actual psychology in the real world, it's not always gonna behave in this ordered, expected way.
No.
In this modeled behavior. But
you can see it in the way people online behave.
Yes. You can see it in the way people online behave. You can... Yes.
They've learned I can say things and it's not going to get me a whack in the nose, so I can keep saying these things.
Right. Right. I think they're dealing with sort of more of what the outcome of that is. They're, what happens after there's a lack of accountability.
Right.
And they're only slightly dealing with that too. Like that's what they're dealing with is what they're really mostly dealing with here is, how our networks cause an extreme interconnectedness. Yeah. And this again, in the psychology of the real world, these don't always track. There are individual ethics that do come into play. For instance, I'm determined to play nice on the internet. I am out here determined to be one of the cooperative nodes. You know? So even if everybody around is a defector node, I'm not gonna let that keep me from being a cooperative node. In hopes that the cooperative node mentality will spread.
Yeah.
Again, much like the original Prisoner's Dilemma, I have personal ethical ethics that come into play that cause me to play the game in a specific way that has nothing to do with the other players. And has nothing to do with the outcomes. I mean, it has something to do with the outcomes, but my decisions aren't affected by the outcomes. My decisions are affected by those, by the ethics that I embody. Yes. That is how I want to say that. All right, shall we continue?
Yep.
All right.
Wouldn't say.
They wouldn't. Most people are nice in real life.
Yeah.
It's funny that the small world, I know you'd think the small world, because it's a Disney song, right? It's a small world after all, like it's supposed to be good. And yet it does expose you to toxicity and malevolence that you might have been shielded from in the small town.
Social media has kind of been toxic. The initial idea being, hey, we connect up a bunch of people and people have been separated geographically, we connect you with your old friends. You look at the net effect of it and it's actually been pretty negative by a lot of measures.
Intrigued by the findings, Watts started wondering if the results applied to the real world too.
For years after I did this work, I had wanted to test the hypothesis with actual human subjects.
So he got some volunteers to play a similar game called the public goods game across different network structures. He was expecting that, like they found previously, more shortcuts in a network would make cooperation less likely to emerge. But what he found was the structure of the network had no effect. Cooperation was just as likely to emerge in a totally clustered network as it was in a totally random one.
We were very puzzled by this result, and then we kind of did some more work.
When Watts dug deeper, he realized that the network structure did matter. In the more clustered networks, people were more likely to copy each other. So if by chance someone started out cooperating, then everyone would cooperate. But it was equally likely that someone would start out by defecting, in which case everyone else would defect. And over all the games they played, these two effects canceled each other out, which is why it seemed like the network structure didn't matter.
It's sort of on a knife edge, right? Where like one person does something selfish and everything goes south. In another world, everybody kind of holds it together and everything goes well.
If you think it might rain later, then all you need is this bearskin heavy storm rain jacket. That's because this is the only...
It's crazy that the world could be like on a knife edge like that, you know, could tip one way or the other, kind of just depends on how someone gets out of bed that day.
But then Watts realized something. See, in real life, you can choose who you hang out with. So he reran the experiment, allowing players to change who they were playing with. And this time he used the Prisoner's Dilemma so that players could easily identify the defectors.
And the finding was clear. The more you allowed players to choose who they were playing with, the more likely they were to cooperate.
You can make this a lot better for yourself by just acting and being decisive and being proactive about things.
Yeah, it's the thing I try to teach my kids too. Like if someone's annoying you, just ignore them. Like there's nothing to be gained by continuing to interact with people who are bringing negativity into your life.
In fact, making a choice can be powerful in more than one way.
There's something about the world that makes it prone to those upheavals, meaning it's always kind of poised on an edge of instability. And that gives each of us more power than you'd think we would have. It is actually possible for individual people to start movements that grow and take off. And ultimately, if you look at history, that is what happens. It's always one person who is stubborn and does something that leads to 10 people, 1,000 people, and things change because of it. It always starts with one person, somehow.
It's a Steve Jobs quote, right? But the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And the wonderful thing is, it all starts with you believing you have that power.
Yeah.
Learning all about
This
network
is
science
why
has taught me many things, but perhaps the most important is that our networks shape us, but our actions shape the networks. So choose both wisely.
Hey, if you made it this far, all the simulations
why
we
I'm
ran through with
determined
Derek,
to
we will
be a
actually make
green
them
node.
available on a website that you can go to so you can play around with them yourself. So thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. And yeah, see you for the next one.
This is why I am determined to be a green node. This is why I'm, determined to be nice. Is because if we really are on that knife edge, I want to do what I can to keep us from tipping that direction, the other direction. If it's really that precarious. And I don't know that it really is that precarious, but if it is, I'm choosing to be nice. They didn't get into the structures of that. That might be something that Andrewism talks about. Do we have the energy to do another video?
No, I do not.
Okay, then we will save Who Stops Evil for next week. It is it's a follow-up. Not really a follow-up, but for our purposes, it is a follow-up video. I feel like it takes the ideas that we've sort of eased into in this video, and it applies them with anarchistic principles, applies them practically to the real world, or tries to show us how we can do that. And as with most of Andrewism's videos, there's a little bit of a definition of anarchy that he has to go through so that people understand what he's talking about. Because anarchy as a political movement isn't quite the same as literary anarchy.
Yeah, because when you said anarchistic principles, I'm just like, isn't anarchy effectively none?
Right. No, it is not. It is not no principles. It's very specific principles, actually. It is decentralized. It's decentralized power. Is what anarchy is. Is decentralizing power structures. Which is why I'm not an anarchist, by the way. I am not an anarchist. I, like I said, am a Vadarian leftist. I believe in very centralized power structures. That's why a vote for Trevor Stewart 1308 in 2028 is a vote for the dictator you deserve.
Good to know.
The true people's dictator.
Did you see the note on the story, or did you see the story about the DoorDash the DoorDash driver in Texas on Monday?
I did notice that. I didn't know if it tied into what we were talking about.
No, it doesn't tie in, but it
So-
is definitely, you know, in the era of this is just funny.
Are you saying that we should finish on something funny?
Yes.
Aha.
Hopeful is good. Funny is also good. Because we
Hopeful
are supposed to be making people laugh.
Hopeful is good. Funny is also good. And yeah, we can finish on something funny.
It's also kind of hopeful because, you know, there was something good that came out of this.
So yeah, I guess. Are you also saying we're done with the discussion around the video at the moment?
For the moment, yes, because I'm starting to drift off and not be able to concentrate on what you're saying about the video.
Okay. Fair enough. Would you be so kind as to move it from the show
Point A to
ideas?
point B?
Yeah, point A to point B.
Yeah.
Because production chat is not going to be for general viewing in stream.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Okay, there we go. And there we go. Okay. Oops, wrong thing. Hero delivery driver alerts cops to hostage situation after customer orders hatchet and zip ties to motel, report says. Wow. A Texas delivery driver called the police after suspicious delivery to Sweetwater Inn, leading to the arrest of a man and the person initially believed to be his hostage. A delivery driver in Texas being hailed for helping foil a hostage situation Monday after a delivery to a motel triggered alarm bells. The incident occurred around 11:30 a.m. when the delivery driver pulled up to Sweetwater Inn on Georgia Avenue. Sweetwater police said in a news release. On September 23rd, police revealed that an investigation into the incident revealed the delivery driver was not associated with DoorDash as they had previously reported. Okay. Huh.
Or like Instacart, I guess.
Okay. The delivery alerted police to the suspicious order, which allegedly contained items such as trash bags, zip ties, bleach, a hatchet, according to local outlet KTAB and KRBC. Police have not yet confirmed the contents of the order. Upon arrival at the motel, officers learned that a man, Neil Cooper, 42, had barricaded himself inside a room and claimed to be armed. Authorities were also informed that a possible hostage was inside the room with him. As officers worked to establish communication with Cooper, the individual believed to be a held hostage managed to safely escape from the room, police said. A crisis negotiator from Texas Department of Public Safety arrived shortly after and was able to talk Cooper into surrendering peacefully. Cooper was taken into custody without incident. He now faces charges of aggravated kidnapping along with 2 active warrants for the manufacture delivery of a controlled substance. The person initially reported as a hostage was also arrested. According to police, that person was charged with failure to identify and had 1 active warrant for the manufacture delivery of controlled substance. Oh. Okay.
This story has been updated to include all of the words like alleged and not confirmed. The original posting of the story had it as delivery driver receives suspicious order or receives order. Realizes that this contains bleach and a hatchet and that they're delivering this to a motel.
Right.
Feels kind of off handing this to the person and then goes and calls the cops about it.
Right. I still have questions. There are unanswered questions here.
Oh, there's a lot.
Hi, Just Me Crystal, by the way. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I got questions. I got so many questions. Not really so many. I have like 2. I'm pretty sure I know what actually was about to go down, but it's like... Were you just tweaking and did you just sort of decide that he was all of a sudden a problem? Your tweak buddy was all of a sudden a problem and had to take care of him? Or was there some greater tweak plan going on here that you guys had and were in together?
Considering the amount of effort it takes to actually get one of those orders placed and making sure that it's actually coming to the correct address, I'm more willing to go with a greater plan.
You think there was a greater tweaker plan involved?
Considering they were at a motel and he had to actively put in a motel address to get it delivered there versus accidentally hitting send this to my house.
Okay. Okay.
But while they say it's unconfirmed, I'm quite willing to believe that all of the items that have been listed were actually part of that order.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. Are we going with that this greater tweaker plan was both of their tweaker ideas or just the one dude's tweaker plan?
I think just the one dude.
So it was a planned... He was going to take out this other tweaker. It was tweaker on tweaker violence.
Potentially. And it's... I mean, just the aftermath of, all right, we've got you out, you're safe, but you're getting arrested. But we can promise that we'll send you off in a separate squad car.
I mean, fair enough.
Yes, dear. That is quite accurate. Or potentially it needed less tweaking.
Yeah. Tweaker plans are always impressive.
Yeah.
Not always clear, but usually surprising. I don't know about effective. Yeah. So that has some. There. This feels like this could have been a scene out of that Val Kilmer movie, Salton Sea. Like
it definitely has the air of. All right, I see you have 2 alligators in the car, sir. What exactly are you planning on doing with those gators now?
Planning on doing with the gators? Officer, I'm so glad you found us. These gators done took me hostage. Just go with it, boys.
Yeah.
Just go with it. Gators?
Yeah.
You say gators? Oh, shit. What happened to Larry? Oh, geez, officer. I don't know where these gators done come from. Huh?
Sirens done turned him into a gator.
Well, all right. I think we've hit our end here.
Oh, definitely.
So in Florida, they've gatored.
Yes, they do.
Gatored communities. Ow. Ow. All right, well, friends, thank you for being here. Thank you guys for being here, Cat, Peanut Gallery. Hey, there's my pointer. There's my pointer. Thank you, Cat. Thank you, Peanut Gallery. Thank you, Jessamy Crystal. Thank you, Maddie Holmes. Thank you, Kush Gang, aka Kingsways. Thank you, Wasabi. Thank you, Chris in the 386. Thank you, Dassin. Am I forgetting anyone? No, I think that's everyone. Thank you, all you chatters. Thank you, all you lurkers. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Stick around for the raid. Much love. And now is the time on the show when I say, as they say around here, 2 up, 2 down. VA, double deuces. We're out, y'all. I'm too ugly for the screen, too ugly for the screen, too ugly for the screen. I'm too ugly to be seen, too ugly and mean. I'm too ugly and mean, too ugly and mean. No one wants to be me, and I'm too ugly for that, too ugly for that, too ugly for that. Your judgment's a trap, so ugly and fat, so kiss my ass. I'm too ugly and mean, too ugly and mean for your precious seed. I'm too ugly for the screen, too ugly for the screen, too ugly for the screen. I'm just too ugly to be seen, too ugly and mean, too ugly and mean. I'm too ugly and mean, no one wants to be me. I'm too ugly for that, too ugly for that, too ugly for that. And your judgment's a trap, so ugly and fat, so kiss my ass.
holiday. Too ugly to stay. I'm beautiful, the sun to look ugly. I'm not hot to be too ugly to be loved. So ugly, I killed my state and love to do what I'm mean. I'm ugly and mean, and this is to be me that you don't know me. You can't just fuck I don't wanna fuck with you, don't wanna do what you can do, know what you can do, know what you can do. Fuck you, we're not cool. I don't wanna fuck with you, don't want fuck with